Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the UFC 314 preview show right here on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We have a fantastic show ahead of you today to break down this stacked UFC 314 card, headlined by Alexander Volkanovski taking on Diego Lopes for the vacant featherweight title. And I'm joined by two great fight analysts, my friends, Gippers Picks, friend of the channel, and now an Early Edge capper here on the show. You can find him in the Discord, constantly giving out picks and breaking down the fights. And the assistant managing editor here at SportsLine, Josh Nagel. Last time I got together with these two fellas, we went 7-2-1 on our UFC 313 preview stream, the Alex Pereira Ankalaev card. And Josh, shout out to you, the dissenting opinion on Ankalaev. Well done, sir. We did really well all together, even though there was some spirited debate. And we should have some more on this card. Josh, how you feeling ahead of 314?
Yeah, all right, Danny. Well, congrats to you as well. I think I might have been the dissenting opinion of that main event, but you guys are right on Justin Gaethje for some reason, right? I just didn't want to buy into him after that previously damaging fight, but he came through, and overall it was pretty solid results. I really like this card. I know we mentioned before the show, there's so many airtight matchups. It's pretty difficult for handicapping, but in terms of pure quality of the product that the UFC's been criticized for in recent past, I think it's one of the best pay-per-view cards of recent memory, maybe the best since UFC 300. So looking forward to breaking this down.
I couldn't agree more. The lineup is can't miss. You're not going to get off your couch. There's no walk the dog breaks. There's no coffee breaks. Gippers, I got to ask you, favorite fight on the card from an entertainment perspective? Is there one you're looking forward to the most?
From an entertainment perspective, it's got to be the main event, at least for me. I mean, is it? Does Volk show us that he's still the great one, or is it time to pass on the torch is the biggest question, I just don't know as if I can trust his chin anymore.
And we'll have to find out, man. Is it a changing of the guard fight, as you alluded to? I love these spots in the UFC. We will find out, and we'll begin getting into our best bets right away, guys, with the prelim fights. Best bets in the preliminary card. And oftentimes, this is where I find the most value on the stacked pay-per-view cards, the big hype, the white noise. It's all on the main card. But on the pay-per-views, some more, easily analyzed spots, in my opinion. And let's kick it off with you, Gippers. You've got a pick that I like very much. Who are you going with on the prelim card?
I'm going with Virna Jandiroba on the money line at a -148. This is definitely a stylistic matchup. One's a striker and Jandiroba's a grappler. I think that Jandiroba is going to be able to take her down. Let's also keep in mind that Weili Zhang took her down 6 times. Granted, it was a 5-round fight, but she took her down 6 times. But when Jandiroba gets her down, Jan's not going to be able to get back up. Jandiroba is so good at advancing her position and making her position stronger and stronger. She is going to put position ahead of submission, even though she's going to be working to get that submission at the same time. And I either see her getting a submission, or the only time Jan's going to get back up is when the bell rings, and that's it. So I see a 3-round ragdoll, and I really like her a lot. It's one of my favorite money lines.
I'm with you 100%. A ragdoll, he describes. And that's the glaring issue with Yan Xiaonan. You mentioned we saw brilliant moments from her in that championship title bout that she had with Weili Zhang. She dropped her multiple times with that stinging right hand. She's a dangerous strawweight boxer, but her grappling has been the issue. And against the elites of the division like Weili, she can't hang. I know it's Weili, but I actually think Virna Jandiroba's jiu-jitsu and pure grappling skill might be better than Weili. I rate her as the best grappler in the division. And if she laces up that body triangle, it's a padlock. I agree with you. Yan Xiaonan's not going anywhere. I think she'll be fighting off rear naked chokes for the majority of the round, and I think she's going to be in a lot of trouble. Virna can hang. She's tough enough on the feet that even though she's not technical, she can take a punch to initiate the grappling sequences and put the fight on her terms. So I'm very much with you, Gippers. That's also my favorite prelim bet of the night. I spoke on it. I like Virna Jandiroba. She's at -142 now. I thought the line would have gone the other way.
Yeah.
But grab it now while it's hot. What do you thought of the movement? And so Josh, you like Virna Jandiroba very much. You're going with a lean in the prelims here. And this is a tricky fight, but I'm interested in your take. Who do you love?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, this is just a lean, but it's now the featured prelim. I think, Sean Woodson probably gets it done against Dan Ige. It's funny, originally I think for the prelims I was going to go with Nikita Krylov against Dominic Reyes, but of course that one got bumped up due to the canceled fight, so I'm just going down the line here. And it's an interesting fight because it's sort of that step up we see for Woodson. Is he for real? We know he's on a 7-fight unbeaten streak. A couple split decisions in there, but also a win over Yusuf Salah that's aged pretty well. And as it boils down for me, it's just that massive size advantage, right? He's 6'2", and that division is just a monster. Ige's 5'7", 5'8", so just the height and reach advantage alone. But we know, Ige's really resilient. He doesn't give up easily. So it's as if I expect him to just stand there and get picked apart at range and do nothing about it. But at the same time, he's had sort of that gatekeeper role for a little bit a while now. It seems like he might be fading a little bit. He's lost 3 of 4. And so for Woodson to basically sort of box at range and just sort of eke out that 29-28 decision, yeah, I think that's a fair outcome. I think this is the time where he steps up and probably grabs that ranking for the first time. And again, it's not a strong play, but I feel like Woodson probably gets there.
This is very much a rankings fight, right? Ige's right there at that 15 spot. So can Woodson break in? And I do think it's his toughest test yet, but you mentioned it. He's a matchup nightmare with his size and his frame and his ranginess. It's very difficult to get in on him because he's a smooth boxer. He moves very well on the outside. He also uses very tricky hand feints to kind of set the rhythm of the dance, make you kind of second guess your position where you are before you let that counterpunch go. And I'm kind of with you overall. I wanted to take that shot on Ige, but unless he lands that right hand, which I'm not sure is going to come, he may be behind in this fight. So Woodson, still lots to prove in terms of his resume fights. This is certainly his toughest test yet. Josh, do you think he coasts to a decision win here, or do you think he can actually put some damage on Ige?
Yeah, it's one of those deals where, again, you look at Woodson's recent past, so there's a lot of split decision against Jordan. It seems like he doesn't create separation all that often. So it wouldn't surprise me if and Ige tends to heat up as the fight goes on. So if Woodson, say, wins the first couple of rounds, they're close, Ige comes on strong, just doing anything he can to pull one out of the fire and wins the third. So I expect again Woodson to get there, but it could be tight for sure.
And for that reason, I kind of like 2 plays if you can get plus money on either side. A Woodson by decision, and perhaps live if he's up in the fight. Look to hedge Dan Ige. If you get plus money on both sides, you are a winner. I see you guys in the chat firing away, and gotta love it. If you have any questions about this card, please let us know. We'll bring it up live on the show. My friend Christopher Witt asks, I know you guys are picking winners right now, but will there be any prop style picks like significant strikes or fight time? Well, Christopher, we're always breaking down those types of picks in the SportsLine Discord on the Combat channel. Gippers loves his significant strike props. If you're not in the Discord yet, be sure to get in there because we're always firing away with great discussion. The link is right there. Please join. I absolutely love every channel, even when other analysts come into other channels, right? There's always great chatter and analysis. So be sure to be involved in that Discord. We'll get you some significant strike props for sure. All right, guys, we covered the prelim bets. Virna Jandiroba for Gippers and I. Sean Woodson lean for Josh. Let's move on to our favorite prop bets. We got some plus money coming up here. Gippers, we have an exciting fight to talk about for your favorite prop bet with a ton of bad blood in it. Tell me who you like.
Silva by KO at a plus 120. I think Silva is going to be better everywhere on the feet. And the one thing I like about Silva is he's not going to rush anything. He's very calculated. He's very patient. And he's going to look for that right shot that he has. And his jab could knock anybody out. And I really wish that we could put money down on exactly what it's going to be. But I could see a left jab, right hook for the knockout. Now, Mitchell may have his moments in the first round, maybe with a takedown, but I see Silva fighting back up. He's one of the fighting nerds fighters. And that they've been working a lot, with him on his takedown defense. And, so I really like this play a lot. And I'm also going to sprinkle second round knockout.
Picking an exact round here. The fighting nerds are the hottest gym in MMA right now, and Gene Silva might be their best product. He's going to come out barking like a dog, and he's going to put on damage. He's on a crazy knockout streak, but he's, like you mentioned, up against an elite wrestler in Mitchell. We may have some debate later here. I'm curious from Josh, before we get into the full meat of this fight and break it down, do you think that Mitchell's chin can last, or do you think it's going to be a matter of wrestling versus striking?
Yeah, Danny, more likely the latter, but I think if you're going to play Silva, that's the correct way. I mean, it's such a steep price. And let's face it, that's his most likely path to victory. So I think instead of just laying that thick chalk, we know that's what's had him gain his popularity is so far as a rising prospect. These flashy knockouts with the power. You might as well just take the plus money and bet him that way. But right, it remains to be seen. I mean, we've also seen Mitchell, as it stands, his 2 losses are in the UFC are to great power punchers. Can he stand up to a third, or can he keep Silva busy just defending the takedowns and maybe squeeze out rounds with ground control? That's the key question there.
Absolutely. So Gippers very much liking Silva to find that knockout shot in the round 2. He likes it. Look out for those exact round props as well. Josh, let's move on to your favorite prop bet of the night. You're looking at the main event. So touch on this one. You got big plus money on your pick.
Sure, Danny. I don't want to completely scoop our main event discussion here, but it's one of those deals where I feel like both the outcome and the method of outcome are correlated, right? It's not unlike a point spread bet where you might say in college football, well, if you take this favorite, you might as well take the over because it's a high scoring team. If they cover the 14, it's for sure going over 52 points or whatnot. And so I feel that way, in the main event, where if you take Diego Lopes, who I do like to win the main event. I mean, to me, his most logical path to victory is going to be that knockout and likely early. If you think about the history there, Volkanovski, by his own admission, he jokes that, he can't possibly be submitted because he has no neck. You figure if guys like, Brian Ortega and Islam Makhachev couldn't do it, I mean, it's unlikely, even though Lopez has great, grappling and jiu-jitsu, that he gets submitted. The deeper it goes, the fight probably favors Volkanovski because we've seen Lopez, gas out a little bit in the longer fights. So to me, if he wins, I feel like a real strong percentage knockout. And so even though you can get him to win still at slightly plus money, why not take that huge price and you bet that outcome?
And it's a very interesting way to play it. By his own admission, you mentioned the no-neck Volkanovski. We've seen it with other fighters. This isn't just a joke. This is a real thing. Some guys have such meaty muscles in their traps and neck. You can't find the choke. They just turn a little bit, and it's not accessible. So perhaps that is, in fact, the case. And perhaps Lopez, instead of using that crafty and skillful BJJ, just looks to test that potentially cracked chin of Volkanovski. So, Josh, going with the plus 275 prop. I'll have to match him in kind a little. We got some great plus money. So I'm going with a plus 260 play, and I already touched on it in the prelims. My favorite prop bet is Virna Jandiroba by submission. I do believe, like Gippers mentioned, that she will take Yan Xiaonan down. She will lace up that body triangle, and her back takes are just too lethal. If Yan is forced to fight rear naked chokes for multiple rounds, eventually I think Virna finds one or even jumps an armbar. Typically, I would be furious with a fighter at this elite level jumping an armbar because these guys are very good at armbar defense. Virna's armbars are the best in the game, I think. They're lethal, and we saw her tap Amanda Lemos out in the first round last fight 2-1. So I trust her to even maintain control. If she jumps a tricky position, right, she can just lace that triangle right back up and go back to work. So I think Virna controls this fight with her grappling, and eventually she finds the submission. Plus 260 play for you guys. Aaron Taylor's in the comments. He says, I'm learning a lot. I love to hear that. Nothing more than spreading fight knowledge warms my heart. All right, we've gotten through our favorite prop bets. Now you guys love these. The parlays are coming. Gippers, master parlay man of his round props. So let's start with you, man. You got a 3-legger combining different round plays, Gippers. How do you like to build a parlay in this one?
Well, this is my favorite method of building parlays. Is I've got 3 fights that I'd like to go long. And the first one is the Ige Woodson. Both of them have only had 1 stoppage while I think it's like 27 fights in the UFC or something like that. And then both Chandler fight and the Lopez fight are both 5-round fights. And I see both of those fights getting off to a more calculated, slower start. So I like those. I like the Chandler fight to start second, and then the Lopez over 1.5, combined with Woodson over 2.5 plus 110. And the last leg is 100% on purpose, a minus 500, because if it gets to the last leg, I will be hedging because I watched Cejudo get his eye gouged out and ruin one of my parlays like a month and a half ago, and I'm not going to let that happen again.
And it's always a good way to play your UFC parlays. Use the main event as a last leg, especially if you're a chalk last leg. You can hedge a plus money side at the end of it and put yourself in a really good position. And you're doing that with that over 1.5 in the end. I very much like where you're headed with these. Betting overs in UFC is almost like betting unders in other sports. You're 100. Hoping for things not to happen, right?
You know how many times You know how many times I even start like counting the seconds down on the like I start counting in my head. I'm almost there. I only got like 1 more minute to go, and I got this.
I'm the same exact way, just taking the minutes, listening to the coaches, watching every defensive position, please. But it's a really fun way to sweat out your parlays. And I like the fights that you pick to go a little deeper. So plus 110 parlay on that. Very nice.
I think I took 5 years off of my life by doing these overs.
Yeah, they'll make you sweat for sure. It's a cage fight. You're betting on guys to last in a cage fight. So, hey, man, we've seen the people, though, that you're backing, I think, have the mettle to go deep in these fights. And I like the way you broke it down. Josh, you have the spiciest parlay of the three of us, plus 635 on yours. Break down your 3 legs.
Yeah, Danny, that's a little conservative for my taste. Like in terms of my parlay goals, I'm the shoot for the stars kind of guy, right? I mean, I want to give out the 6-legger that I put $25 on to win $2,000. That's just what I go for. And sometimes, hey, you never know, the stars align and you hit something. But I always like to put in a little plus money just to juice it up a little bit. And again, as we mentioned in the main event, just these various outcomes I do feel are correlated. So Volkanovski versus Lopes under 3.5 rounds. I do believe if Lopes wins by knockout, as we have on the prop play, it's likely early. I suppose it could happen late, but I feel like he probably gets there in the first 2 rounds if it's going to happen. And they're giving us, I think, around plus 115-ish on that total, which I like. I took Yair Rodriguez by decision and sort of with a bittersweet taste because I like Patricio Pitbull. And believe it or not, I'm actually kind of hoping he wins, but when it comes right down to it, I feel like this is kind of a rough matchup for him. I mean, Rodriguez is so sleek and athletic, and if he just uses his agility in the kickboxing to roam around, land some strikes, and win some rounds, I feel like that's the most probable outcome. I think we're getting about plus 125 on that. And then the one sort of chalky play that I had nowhere else to go, what I mentioned before, which would have been my previous prelim, is Nikita Krylov, who I just feel like he's going to win the fight. Yeah, he's a bit of an enigmatic fighter, right? It feels like Krylov's been ranked number 8 in his division for about 10 straight years. And then when you look at the rankings, that's basically because he has. When you look at his career trajectory, he's had some long layoffs and some bouts of regular activity, but now he's coming off this 2-year layoff. I like Dominic Reyes and the comeback story. It's amazing. I'm just happy, he won any fights after the punishment he went through. But let's face it, they gave him a pretty soft landing spot there with Dustin Jacoby and Anthony Smith. So this is his first climb up against a legitimate top 10 guy, and I just feel like Krylov ultimately has a little more vast tool set there, and I feel like he gets there.
This is a really interesting plus 635. You brought up 3 great fights, and I really enjoy the way you broke it down. That Krylov, you mentioned the Dominic Reyes second wind of his career. I'll be rooting for him, but you're not wrong. They gave him a tough matchup. Krylov is good everywhere. So I'm excited for that one. I'm excited for the Patricio Pitbull, Yair Rodriguez fight we'll touch on a little more, and I like your plus 635 shot there. My parlay, a little more conservative. I like the 2-leg money line parlays. I go with a lot of UFC spreads lately, but these are 2 fighters that I like to get it done. First fight of the night, the curtain jerker. Sometimes not one you want to jump in right away because if you get it wrong, well, then down goes the ship right on the first fight. But I think minus 175 is a pretty fair price tag for Nora Cornole, French kickboxer who has a good clinch game. I think she has a lot more damage upside in this fight. She can lace up that plum grip with the Muay Thai clinch and land knees and elbows on the inside. And I think she'll have plenty of opportunities to do so because her opponent, Haley Cowan, is pretty much a pure grappler who I don't think is UFC caliber. I just don't think that she belongs in the promotion. She has some skill. She's got grit, but ultimately I don't think she's going to be able to take down Cornole, who will beat her up in the clinch when she tries to take her down and fails to do so. I'm pairing her with Michal Olejejczyk, a guy whose Polish name I can now spell without checking twice. After 15 fights in the UFC, can you believe this guy has 15 fights? I think finally he's coming into the peak of his game. He's training Gippers with the fighting nerds ahead of this camp. He got the brakes beat off him by Kyle Borralho, one of the best prospects out of that gym, and then called him up and said, hey, man, can I train with you? Can you give me some of that game? And Kyle's going to be cornering from him for this fight. He's facing Cedricus Dumas, who I just don't think has the same skill level as him. Dumas has this wrestling upside, but Olejejczyk's faced a lot of stiff competition, ranked middleweights, and put them in some trouble, too. We saw him pop Kevin Holland with a good shot. He's got some tricky southpaw boxing. I think he can win this fight inside the distance. And if he's with the fighting nerds now, this is it for Olejejczyk, right? Normally, I look to back him as an underdog. You're not going to see him as a 2-1 favorite often, but I think the line is right. So I'm going to pair these 2 money lines together, and you get plus 138 right there. All right, guys. These are the parlays. And while we await UFC 314, it's Thursday, guys. The Masters is underway. And if you're not watching, well, I'd be surprised because Sia Nejad and Mike McClure are absolutely killing their plays. They're giving sharp analysis, and I'll be tailing all Masters long. And if you want to get involved, BetMGM has a great boost token you can use. Get a bet odds boost for your Masters bets at BetMGM. Use your boost token on any Masters bet, and you'll receive a bigger payout if you win. Excitement is par for the course at BetMGM. You like a good ad read pun? That's some good copy. Ba-doom-ch. All right, guys. On to some plus money, favorite way to attack UFC. And we're looking at the dogs. These are our favorite underdog bets. Josh, let's start with you, sir. We have a really interesting breakdown here. Gippers already gave his prop bet on this fight, but you're going with the opposite side. So I'm excited to hear. Who do you like for your dog of the week?
Yeah, Danny, so this to me is just, it kind of comes up as a principle of the price point, and that's Bryce Mitchell, who I'm sure that, our audience is UFC savvy. They're aware, despite all the controversy surrounding his, for lack of a better word, counterculture beliefs, that he's not afraid to air publicly on a regular basis. And it's bad when even in the sort of the renegade anything goes world of the UFC, in particular regard to free speech, that Dana White steps in and calls him the dumbest person he's ever seen. It gets bad in terms of his quote unquote intellect. But I'm just looking at it through the prism of the fight handicapping. I think it's funny how they've almost changed roles. Not that long ago, Bryce Mitchell was sort of the hot prospect coming along. They seem to have a pretty good following. His two losses are nothing to be ashamed of, right? Elio Topuria and Josh Emmett, one now a dominant champion, and the other a long-time legitimate contender. I think it just speaks to, if nothing else, his current resume shows lack of success against power punchers. But at the same time, he does have a win over Edson Barbosa, so he's beaten a prolific striker before. And I just feel like if this fight had happened just a year ago or before he fought Emmett, I feel like the prices almost flipped. I gotta say, when I saw prices for this event, first released at various sports books, there was somewhere I saw Silva in the near -$5 range, where that was just outrageous, and that has since settled down a little bit. And honestly, I still think it's too high. Like when it comes down to a 3-round fight with the wrestler grappler against the pure striker. You mentioned how many times have we seen it, even though it might not be the most fan-friendly deal, but Mitchell, with his speed wrestling and whatnot, just secures a few takedowns, kind of stifles Silva's offense, his ability to strike, and even if he doesn't do significant damage or even threaten the submission or whatnot, but an onslaught of takedowns with some control time becoming the deciding factor in the round, and he just snags 2 rounds. I just felt like it was an offer there that I couldn't refuse. So I actually got him. I got Mitchell. I got a piece of him, I think, around +260, and now he's in the +210 range. It seems like it's dropping even further. And I like Silva. Let's face it, the flashy knockouts have been pretty awesome to watch, and he seems to have a magnetic personality that the fan base is warming up to. He was a fun guy to root for. But you're essentially wondering, did Mitchell learn anything from his last fight? I mean, I think if he fights with some smart strategy there, he could get his hand raised.
And you beat the number already. You got +260. It's down to +10. So like they say, you've done your job. You're betting on Mitchell to wrestle him. We haven't seen him face any grappler of this caliber yet. So while I'm enamored with Gene Silva and the Fighting Nerds, you might be, and although you might be on an island because, like you mentioned, he's not a popular guy. You're not going to agree with a lot of his sentiments. He's preaching a lot of things that many people are going to have an issue with. That doesn't mean that you haven't found value in the betting side of them. We're not talking about their personalities. We're talking about a betting market. So Josh, looking past all that and finding value in the wrestler, beating the number already. So very interesting play there. Gippers, your favorite underdog pick is in the co-main event of the evening. Heck of a fight here. Who do you like?
Yes, it is. I like Michael Chandler. I think he's the better fighter. I know there's some disagreement on this, but I think he's going to be stronger, more and more powerful. He's definitely going to be better on the feet. I mean, this is just another one of those matchups that we've got all night long of, striker versus grappler. And, I mean, we're seeing it throughout the matchups on this card. It seems like it's the theme, I think Chandler can keep it standing. The only person that's taken him down in the UFC is Charles Oliveira, and he can take pretty much anybody down. If he fights like he did against Oliveira, I think he wins this fight. If he fights like he did in the 3rd round against Dustin Poirier, we might be singing a different tune here, but I really like this, and I think he keeps it standing, and I also like it to go long, so it's what I like.
Chandler fights are usually chaos that goes so much longer than you ever expected. It looks like the fight's going to be over in the first 30 seconds, just absolute madness. And then it's a 5-round affair, back and forth, guys trading. He specializes in the chaos factor. So maybe he can overwhelm Paddy and starch him. They say Scousers don't get knocked out, but he hasn't faced anyone like Chandler yet. So this is a big level check. We'll see if Paddy's ready for the top 5 of the division, or if Chandler can turn him away and show him that there's levels to this. Gipper's going with Michael Chandler. My favorite underdog of this card, I may have egg on my face after this one, but I like Patricio Pitbull plus 165. My feeling is a little bit similar to the Michael Venom Page versus Kevin Holland fight. And no, stylistically, the fights have nothing in common at all. But the reason I bring it up is because it's a Bellator signed fighter making his debut at the UFC. And my narrative is sort of like, I think that they're going to get a debut win to kind of further advance their career and see where this guy can go. He is 37 years old in a dangerous division right now. And Yair is certainly going to have, like Josh mentioned, the agility, the speed, the swiftness advantage. He's a tricky striker who can just throw a flurry of unorthodox attacks at you. The reason I like Pitbull is because he's poised, he's calm, he's measured, and he has the wrestling upside. I think if he can make Yair Rodriguez miss a little bit, maybe he can find a counter right hand to hurt him, and then maybe he can implement his wrestling. We've seen Yair struggle against guys that focus on the grappling and look to implement that. And Yair, as dangerous as he is, maybe there's a world where Pitbull stays safe and poised and wins 2 out of these 3 rounds, not getting overwhelmed by those crazy strikes. So I'm going to take a shot on him in his debut. I think a lot of people are down on him for 2 losses he had recently against Suzuki in Ryzen, a guy that you would not say is maybe UFC caliber to this level. And admittedly, Pitbull said it was a fight that took place at 5 a.m. He was way off. He didn't feel good. He lost a fight to Sergio Pettis when he cut down to 135, going for triple champ status in Bellator. He said the weight cut was just way too much for him. I think this is a spot where he's healthy and ready to go. Tough matchup, but I think he can do it. So I'm going Pitbull plus 165. All right, guys. We got through the dogs. Now it's time to head to the main event of the evening. And these are our favorite bets in the final fight of the night. We're all very like-minded. Josh, I'm going to let you lead off. Who do you like for the vacant featherweight title?
Yeah, well, Danny, the question that we've heard all week in various media analysis shows or whatnot, it's just that that core question with Volkanovski at this age. Does he still have the chin? Can he hold up? And we all know the stats that are out there about fighters age 35 and older in the lower weight classes and their success or lack thereof in championship fights. And I believe I have this right, but from lightweight 155 on down, I believe it's 0-14. If you add in welterweight, I believe it's 2-21 total, with Bilal Muhammad very recently denting the win column there. But it's 0 wins from 155 on down. And I would think that's not so much a trend as empirical data that just suggests this is a young man's game, and never more so than at the lighter weights. Volkanovski, you wonder, is he the one guy that can sort of reverse this historical data and dent the win column? And it's easy to make an argument for him when you feel like look at his knockout losses or to some of the most esteemed champions that they're out there today, right? The number 1 pound for pound guy, Islam Makhachev, the number 3 pound for pound guy, Ilia Topuria, who then went to knock out Max Holloway for the first, give him his first stoppage defeat. So there's no shame in those losses, and he comes back down to his natural weight class. He's taking a lot of time off, and you think, hey, he could be the one to buck that trend. But I also just think it's a bad matchup. One, I think it's a little worrisome against Topuria. And it's funny because you would think, if he took a lot of damage, that would be a huge concern. But I'm concerned that he didn't, right? Like it was like pretty much a first clean combo. He went down, and that's kind of a bad sign. It was a flash, head kick the previous time. And I think that might be a sign when you do, start to lose that chin. And it's just as sinister and powerful of a striker as Lopes is. I believe this is just a bad rematch. For instance, if this was some sort of like rematch with Yair Rodriguez, I would like Volk, right? I think he could win that one. But given that Lopes is such a fearsome striker and aggressive early, and I just don't think the timing's right for Volk to get back on track. So I like Lopes to win, and I believe he just gets to him early, lands those shots, and stops him.
I think your points, the way that you broke this down is very interesting to me, because a lot of Volkanovski bettors will reference hey, he got knocked out by a perfect head kick from Islam Makhachev and a perfect right hook from Ilia Topuria, right? So Lopez is not the caliber of technical strikers that those guys are. But what a great point you made. Max Holloway, despite taking his first career knockout to Ilia Topuria, a guy we know who has unprecedented power, literally Georgian bone density that is different than most humans in his fist. Max did take a few shots from him, right? He still showed his chin on display until he folded to the perfect combo. Volk went down like that. And I don't want to knock his chin for taking a perfect shot from Topuria, but you're right. It wasn't like a showing of toughness before it happened. It happened for the first big shot. And I worry what that might happen, what might happen against Lopez, who is not as clean of a striker as those guys, but his dirty boxing can hurt you. He doesn't need to make it pretty, and Volk will engage in the pocket. I think he'll give him chances to get that clinch and just hammer him away with those short shots, short uppercuts, potentially compromise his chin. So I like the way you see it, Josh. Gippers, how are you seeing this main event fight play out?
Well, I'm seeing it almost the same way. And the one thing that I'm looking at is Diego Lopez has some nasty kicks also. And I mean, I've seen him with his outside kicks are nice, and he's got nice high kicks also. We actually could see another knockout by a high kick in this fight. And I mean, and then he's going to be faster everywhere. He's going to be faster. He's going to be slightly stronger. He's more athletic. He's younger, and and I trust Lopez's chin. I think the only question mark that anyone could come up with on Lopez is round 4 and 5.
Yes.
If it gets there, that's going to be the only question mark on this fight at all. But everything else checks the box on the Lopez side, at least for me. And so my play is over 1.5 rounds and on the money line plus 185.
I'm with you, Gippers. I'm totally with you. I think that is the one question mark. What happens in the championship rounds if it goes deep? If Volk does have his chin and he can take it far. But even if it is a decision-based fight, I actually trust Lopez to win 3 rounds. I think he can win that outcome. So I'm really, more than anything, I think he is at an all-time high in self-belief. I think he's ready to become a champion. He's not just a random contender who's getting a fluky shot. He believes in himself. He debuted against Movsar Evloev, one of the hardest matchups in the division, and almost submitted him multiple times. So now you see the full development of Lopez. I think he's ready to do it, and I think it's time for a changing of the guard. We've seen the dominant champions fall. Usman, Izzy, the number 1 contenders, right? Whitaker, Max. Eventually, their time has come. They have to step down, and it's a new era. Topuria's of the world, Lopez's of the world. I think he's ready to take this title. Wow, what a great main event discussion. Before we get into our best bets, guys, if you're not subscribed with SportsLine, you're sleeping. You're missing out on so much great value. So I'm going to offer you a deal to do so right now. Plug in the code WINNERS, and you get 60% off for your first year signed up at SportsLine. Of course, you'll get access to that Discord that I mentioned as well, and amazing analysts and cappers in every sport. So much content, so much coverage. Very well worth your while for that 60% off with code WINNERS. All right, guys, let's get into our best bets to close out the show. It's been a lot of fun. Gippers, start me off with yours. What do you got?
I've actually got one of your plays. It's Nora Cornell on the money line, and I'm combining that with Patricia Pitbull plus 7.5. So basically, the way I see this is Cornhole is just going to be better everywhere. I think I've actually got it jotted down that Haley Cohen will more than likely get her walking papers after this ends. I mean, I just don't think I don't think she's UFC caliber at all. I think Cornell is going to piece her up on the feet, and I think she can actually grapple better than Cohen can anyways. So I don't feel like Cohen has anything to give us in this fight at all. And then Patricia Pitbull, I see this fight going all 3 rounds as it is. So all we need is one judge to give us 1 round. That's it. We don't even need him to win all 3 judges on 1 round. We just need 1 judge, 1 round, and we cash our plus 7.5. And I think Pitbull is, even if he loses, he's still going to have some success with his grappling, and he's not that bad on the feet. He might arguably be just as good as Rodriguez on the feet anyways. So I see the Pitbull fight as more of a 50-50 fight. And so I just took the safety valve with a plus 7.5, and it was a plus 118 little 2-piece parlay.
I'm a big fan of the plus 7.5 spreads in UFC. If you can find a fight that you're confident will go the whole way, will be a competitive decision, then why not take one judge to give a guy one round? I took this with Gerald Meerschaert last week in his fight against Brad Tavares. And although he was down for first 10 minutes of the fight, he eked his way out in the third. And there you go. Covered the plus 3.5, covered the plus 7.5. So I really like finding legs like this in fights that you trust the guy's chin, their cardio, and their ability to compete for 3 rounds. Nice parlay, Gippers. Josh, what is your best bet for this 314 card?
Yeah, so we're going to look at the co-main event here and talk about what's been a pretty significant price change. I'm backing Michael Chandler, and it's with a little bit of apprehension when it comes to his unpredictability. Say what you will about the guy. I'm not a huge fan of how he oversaturates himself in the MMA media space and some of his tactics, both in and after fights. Like after his last decisive loss to Charles Oliveira, he commanders the mic for 5 minutes and does his WWE style call outs. Sometimes it's just a bit too much, but the same can be said of Paddy Pimblett, who honestly I wasn't too hyped about to begin with. I didn't understand what all the fuss was about when he came on board. He fought relatively modest competition, and let's face it, his stock was way down after the Jared Gordon fight that most of the world thought he lost. He didn't handle criticism well at all, and in the same vein where he was criticized for his his weight habits or lack of discipline in between fights, and the public seemed to sour on him quite a bit. In his defense, he did a pretty good job to ward that off by just sort of disappearing and shutting his mouth for a while, which he needed to do, come back determined and in good shape. And he got that first key win over Bobby Green after opening as a sizable underdog, and it closed, about pick 'em. And when it comes right down to it, it's one of those deals like, you can't just be a prospect forever. You want to show your wares and see if you're a true contender or not. He won that fight impressively, right, and decisively. He got the first round submission, and Dana White gave him like 10 bonuses and all that. But now I feel like, this is still a step up, even though Chandler's pushing 40. And his whole UFC reign hasn't worked out as well as he had hoped. And you mentioned Patricio Pitbull. I feel the same way about both. I wish 5 guys earlier on each, right? Chandler was nearly 35 when he joined the UFC. I'd love to see him at age 30, see what he could have done. Pitbull, 30, almost 38. And in his prime, I think for sure he would have done some damage in the UFC, but a top 5, probably top 3 guy for sure. But now with Chandler there, I just feel like the bottom line is it's a pretty big step up, I think, for Pimblett from a past prime Bobby Green to a past prime Michael Chandler. One thing among the many things Chandler will tell you is that his record, although not great, right, it's 2-4 in terms of the one loss. All his losses are to future Hall of Famers. He was competitive in all of them. For instance, I thought Dustin Poirier would wipe the floor with him, and he actually had a great first round, almost took him out. He had a great first round against Gaethje and Oliveira the first time before eventually losing all those fights. I think it's just almost do or die for Chandler. Like, if he loses this one on top of that, has he lost his utility for the UFC? I mean, they might give him one more gimmicky fight against Saint Denis or someone like that. But if this is his last chance to kind of hold up as a viable commodity in the UFC, and the bottom line is, I think he is more powerful, explosive, and he does keep in tremendous shape. There's one thing you got to give him credit for is built as that guy is. How does he make 155 at age 38? He is incredibly disciplined. I think he will put it on Pimblett from the start. And so long as he doesn't get reckless, like Green did, and fall into submit or get a little careless and get taken down and submitted. But if he keeps the pressure on him with the striking, I think he might be a little bit too much for Pimblett to handle. And when you look at Pimblett's overall resume, I think it's fair to say, it's relatively modest. I think by far Chandler's the best opponent he's faced. So at plus money, whereas it was a pick 'em, and now we're getting almost nearly plus 140 on Chandler, I think you got to take the shot there.
A great argument for Iron Michael Chandler, who, like you said, is the toughest test that Paddy Pimblett has faced yet. And I hate to be on the opposite side of Josh for our best bet, but I do love Paddy the Baddy Pimblett in this spot personally. Stephen Cook, good to see you here. A bit late, but we're right into best bets. And of course, you can watch it all back for all of our breakdowns and picks, Stephen. I'm going with Paddy the Baddy. I like a lot of the points that Josh just made for Chandler. He's going to have to prove that he can last in a nasty fight against a guy that will push the pace on him. But I think Chandler's recklessness will be his undoing. It either wins him fights or loses him fights. And yes, he's had moments where he almost stole the belt away from Charles Oliveira, right? He came to the UFC and sparked Dan Hooker immediately. Dan Hooker pre-tattoos. I don't know what version of Dan Hooker might do to him now, but nonetheless, extremely impressive, right? His punching power is legit. His wrestling upside is there. I just think that he puts himself in such dangerous positions that Paddy Pimblett can capitalize on the way that Dustin Poirier capitalized on. Poirier certainly not known for his jiu-jitsu and grappling, but is very skilled, known for his boxing. And he put Chandler in a body triangle and rear naked choked him and completely controlled him there. We saw a lot of dirty tactics from Chandler in that fight, the fish hooks pulling on the mouth guard, the little eye gouges, the glove grab. So he'll do what he has to win. I almost respect it a little bit, like it's a cage fight, man. So by any means. But I think Paddy will be up to the test whenever he pulls that. He can fight nasty too. People fail to realize Paddy's 22-3. He has gone 5 rounds multiple times in the Cage Warriors promotion. Yes, against much lesser competition, but Josh mentioned it. In the beginning of his career, he didn't take things seriously. He was this goofy British kid who came out with a silly dance and gained 50 pounds in between fights. You see him at a ball game with 5 hot dogs and 6 beers, and he's got to cut 50 pounds. He's now a father who takes his professional athletic career very seriously, and he's really shaped out. He's huge for the division, very quietly. He's built out now, and I think his height and range will actually give Chandler some trouble when they grapple and when they strike. So I'm expecting a competitive fight until Paddy finds the body triangle and starts grappling. I think Chandler's recklessness will get him caught or to win him this fight, and Josh will be absolutely right. So I'm excited to see this one play out. We have a banger of a co-main event. Best bets are up on the screen. Pimblett for me, Chandler for Josh, and a little two-leg parlay, Cornell and Pitbull plus 7.5 for Gippers. Great show, fellas. We went a little long, but there's a lot to talk about on this wonderful card. Thank you for everyone to come on in and join the show. Stephen Cook, liking the Paddy pick, a Liverpool lad, a Scouser, if you will. And I hope you guys can cash on whichever picks you're tailing. Thank you so much for joining the show. Smash the like button on the way out, and be sure to join us for all of our UFC pay-per-view streams on behalf of Gippers Picks, on behalf of Josh Nagel, and on behalf of myself, Danny Brasco. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you for the next one. Cheers.